The audio snippets used in this podcast are taken from the Mellon Foundation Oral History Program's archive. The stories produced through this podcast series and the opinions and statements that may be contained herein do not reflect those of the District 6 Museum, but rather the individuals hosted within this series. Welcome to another episode in the District 6 Museum Vusalela Ons Luister podcast series. This podcast deals with the experiences of people who, under the apartheid government, were forcefully removed from their homes and communities because of the color of their skin. We will hear first-hand accounts of what it was like to be separated from your community and forced to live on the Cape Flats. We will start with Uncle Ron.
Maybe then let's talk more about, the whole question around people romanticizing District 6, the suffering and the pain that people went through. And why do you think people do that, romanticize District 6?
Yeah, the question implies that it's being romanticized. Because the question asked, do you think that they are romanticizing it because of the trouble, hardship they had,
Sure.
or do you think for some other reason? So the question implies that people do romanticize. Now my counter question is, what do you mean by romanticize? Do you mean that the people are looking at their life through rose-tinted glasses? If you read the book, you find that's not so.
Okay.
It's a very balanced, one lady, and that's a beautiful story, perhaps the best story. The story that had me crying is by a Barbara Brown, if you read the book. It's called Kanala Dorp, the article. And there she speaks of the rats nibbling their toes when they were sleeping. So people spoke about how bad the slums were and the gangsterism and things like that. But also throughout you get this vibe of the vibrancy, the music, the love, the laughter, and so on. So I don't think it's romanticizing to do that, because if you think of it, my brother, the music and the laughter and the jokes and the dancing, that was part of, your survival.
Sure.
Yeah, defense mechanism,
Sure.
which we probably got from our forebears, our slaves and our Khoisan forebears. These people had it bad, but they started the coons and the dancing in the streets and so on. So I think it's not, I think we're emphasizing that because it just was a terrific story. I mean, just think of it. The District 6 story is a magic story. And the end, the bulldozing, has made it a historical event of note.
Sure.
I mean, around the world, people know about the story of District 6. So if we're telling the story in dance and music and song and so on, and in drama, then it's just a natural, ongoing thing. This is how we do our thing.
When asked a question about why people romanticize the good old days of District 6 and other areas of forced removals, we often get a response exactly like the one Uncle Ron gave us. What we have found is that it is not so much that people are stuck in nostalgia or are romanticizing. It is about the reality, not only of life, but also the years of colonial rule and apartheid oppression. This deep love for music, for entertainment and creativity presents itself as a survival mechanism or outlet. People remember District 6 with a fondness that we cannot put into words. It is the nature of remembering to add that essence of nostalgia when memories have a longing quality to them. But what do people long for? The good old days? But what are the good old days? People long for a time before the Group Areas Act of 1950, before they were removed. The Group Areas Act of 1950 was first implemented in District 6 on the 11th of February 1966, and it saw to the removal of 60,000 people over a period of 17 years. Let's have a listen to Mr. Fuad and Mr. Aboubarker Brown share their experience with us.
I got married in 1966, and my greatest gift was the declaration of District 6 as a white area. That was shocking to me. 3 weeks after I got married, the news came.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we had to move out. I moved out to Pine Road, stay with my aunt. And later my parents moved out. Around about 1971, they moved out to go and stay in Hanover Park. It was very, very traumatic for my dad.
Thank you.
My dad, I used to go and buy the newspaper for my dad. He read that newspaper from front to back, from back to front, and we were to Daddy, when do we get the paper? That night, right, I gave him the paper, front page, District 6 declared white group area.
When was it?
On the 11th of February 1966. My dad said, he didn't even read the paper. Bring me the dirt bin. He crumbled it up, threw it in there. Oh, my dead body. I'm not moving from here. They can do what they like. I'm not going to move. Okay? He actually got his wish. We buried him from there. And then we were told, okay, we were actually forced out of here. We weren't asked nicely or something like that. You got your notice paper, that's your address, you must go there. Okay? So my dad got his wish, we buried him in 1971. I was about 26 years old. Okay? I was gone. Everybody was married, so my mom was alone in the house. Now people always talk about, some people tell you District 6 was dangerous and all that. Never. District 6 became dangerous. You guys know what happens today. A building gets empty, who takes over?
Gangsters.
Either vagrants or gangsters. That is when it started happening, and we told our mom, please mom, you got to go come and live with one of us. Okay? You can't stay in that house alone. Okay? So eventually we got her to agree to that, but remember the day when we had to move?
Yes.
All the stuff was packed in the van. The lorry was waiting outside.
Did you hire them?
Yeah, the lorry, yeah.
Okay.
So we live upstairs, like we are here now.
Yes.
Lorry was waiting downstairs. It took my mom 1 3/4 of an hour to get out of that house. Up and down she walked, looking at the walls, looking at the ceiling, crying.
Yeah.
It hits you. It's very sad.
Mr. Fuad and Mr. Brown gave us a glimpse into what forced removals were like for them and their families. But how did children experience forced removals? Mrs. Maureen Gallen reflects on this.
Well, this was the problem. You know, I think at some stage my parents became aware that we were going to have to go, you know, in those days, pardon me, people didn't talk about what was happening in front of the children. It was always whispered innuendos or whispered things. And so it did have a sense of anxiety for children because we didn't know what was happening, but we understood that something was in the pipeline. We just didn't know what. And then, of course, having seen, you know, people be moved out before, one day you'd see a family and fine, you'd be playing with the children, and the next day the family wouldn't be there. They'd be gone. And nobody would be able to account for it. All I remember is there was, and this was actually quite a scary bit for a small child, is that they used to have these, the security branch had these Volkswagen Beetles, and it was, I'm not sure if it was white or grey, I'm a bit blurred on that now, but I remember these men used to get out with the satchels and they'd go up to the house and, you know, deliver papers or whatever, and you'd see, you know, the tenseness, and people became scared of those cars. And so that's how it grew, when we suddenly realized that family's gone and that family's gone, and they didn't have time to actually say goodbye. It was very quick, it was very unexpected. But they must have been relocated somewhere on the Cape Flats.
It is important to stress that District 6 was not the only area that went through this experience. Throughout South Africa, there is Sophiatown, South End, Driefontein, and Simonstown, among many other areas that went through a similar experience. Auntie Shakiena Meyer talks a bit about how they in Simonstown experienced forced removals.
One day, I came home and my oom said to me that Mr. Lou was here. Ek sê ek ken nie vir Mr. Lou nie, wie's Mr. Lou? So he said Mr. Lou is die ene wat jou sluit wat kom vra vir die forced removal. Hulle het sleutels gebring. And then all of a sudden everything just went to my car in Simonstown.
Between 1960 and 1982, 3.5 million people were forcefully removed from their homes and farms throughout South Africa. And it all started with a love letter. But what is this love letter? The District Sixers, in their sarcasm and defiance, coined the notice of eviction they received from the apartheid government as their very own love letter. We will hear from Mrs. Doreen Martin Jacobs and Mrs. Rosaline Isaacs what they thought of their love letter.
Just tell me then, did you receive any letters to say, hey, on Wednesday, we're going to move you? Did the government send you any letter to
No.
say, to notice you?
Do you know they used to have people who used to come and collect the rent?
Yeah.
And they told us. We were told, first of all, and afterwards we were given a letter to say we were moving.
Yo. What? Did they just put you into the truck and say, go to Kensington? How did you move?
They built houses and you could buy or rent one of those houses.
But how did they move you? Did they put you in one big truck, put all of your stuff and go?
No, you could choose where you wanted to stay.
Okay. Okay. So how long did you move before the notice was given to you? Did they give you 2 months, 3 months, or was it just a matter of tomorrow we're going to move
No,
you?
they sent us forms to fill in. Then we sent in the forms. Then we just got a letter to say we got a flat in Bloomer Flats.
The first one.
But yeah, we got a flat in Bloomer. Okay, we were excited. We weren't going very far. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We were excited. Then when they had sent in Bloomer Flats, so most of the buildings and houses were all thrown down. They were throwing it down around us. You know what I mean? When we were in Bloomer Flats. The Bloomer Flats was the only one still standing.
Yo. And how did the movement from Bloomer?
Then Bloomer Flats, we got the letters to say they're going to move us. Valhalla Park is the other.
Yeah.
So then we got letters to say they're going to move us now to Hanover Park, Valhalla Park. So then I decided, no, let's buy.
Let's rather buy.
Because then we know what we're working for. You know what I mean? So we actually got a place in Valhalla apparently, but then we told the council that we are buying.
Yo.
But then, of course, the previous houses were on my mother's name. Now the children are stepping in.
People were hit hard by the announcement of the Group Areas Act, and while rumors of forced removals were circulating, this was not a hard and fast fact. If anything, people lived in disbelief until the day they saw their neighbors packing up their homes and getting into lorries to be dropped off on the sandy, barren lands of the Cape Flats.
Now today, we got a lot of privileges, right? I mean, I always talk to youngsters, when they come here too, I say to them, please grab your opportunities with open arms. With both hands and even with your feet. We never had that. Grab it, you have it. We couldn't go to any school that we chose. We couldn't go to like beaches, we told you. We couldn't go this. You want to study further? Maybe you have to go out of the country to go and study. Today you can do it here. Everything is available, grab it.
No matter where we are here. Thank you for listening, and please stay tuned for another episode in the District 6 Museum Vuselela Ons Luister podcast series. The audio snippets used in this podcast are taken from the Mellon Foundation Oral History Programs archive. the stories produced through this podcast series, and the opinions and statements that may be contained herein do not reflect those of the District 6 Museum, but rather the individuals hosted within this series.